Starts off his talk with a bunch of numbers, and he kind of uses those numbers as goals for our season. And one of those numbers was the number of years since Clemson had been to the Sugar Bowl, and that was one of our goals from the very beginning in August. And it's great to be here. I think our players and coaches understand the history of the Sugar Bowl. The last time that I was here was actually as a coach's kid. My dad was coaching at Florida State, and they played here in 1989 against Auburn. And so I have great memories of that. I was 8 or 9 years old running around. And so it's great to be back as a coach in such a historic bowl game. There's a few new faces and new names, but the same results. Schematically, they're very, very similar to what they've done the last 2 years. I think the best teams know what they want to do and they do it well. And I think probably the same could be said about us offensively. We're not a whole lot different than maybe who we've been the last 2 years. But it's very impressive that with some of the departures that they've had over the last 2 years defensively, that there's no drop-off whatsoever. Very physical. They make you earn everything. There's no free plays out there. Literally every run and every pass completion, there's a guy right there. And so the biggest thing for us is really to focus on ourselves. We got a lot of respect for our opponents, but part of our plan is really focusing on our own execution, and to be sure that we go out and give ourselves the best chance to be successful. Yeah, I think the biggest difference was from where he was his first 2.5 years to where he showed when he showed up in August. He was a different player, different quarterback. The confidence that he had, ability to throw the ball, understanding what we were doing offensively was really night and day from where he was even in the past spring. Once the season started, I think obviously being a first-year starter, there's a lot of lessons that you learn each and every week. But really from our perspective, he's been the same all year long. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're sitting here today is because of his consistency. That's one of the best traits you can have in your quarterback is someone that's very consistent and doesn't, play up or play down in certain games and certain moments. And he's just been very consistent. Whatever we've asked him to do in order to win a game, he's done it. In some games we've thrown it a little bit more. Some games we've asked him to run the ball and do different things, and he's always risen to that challenge. And I think it's quite remarkable for him in his first year to play the way that he has and to lead this team.
Coach, can you talk about the respect you've had for him?
Yeah, great player. Kind of over the last few years we've had the opportunity to play a lot of great players and guys that we respect and have a great skill set. I think he's probably one of the most complete players that we've studied over the last few years. Very technically sound. He doesn't get out of position very much at all. He uses his hands very well. He has his eyes in the right spot. And not only does he know what they want to do defensively, you can tell he spends a lot of time in the film room. He anticipates things very well. And, I definitely would say is one of the best players that we have faced in the past and probably will this year.
Talking to Jalen yesterday, he's glad now that he has that year under his belt as opposed to starting in this type of game last year as a true freshman. Do you have any concerns with Luke Kelly now that the stakes are getting higher? I know he was there in the question marks. How he might handle the stakes are getting higher?
Yeah, for us, not really, because this has kind of become the norm. And that's a great spot to be. I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, we couldn't sit up here and say that playing in a playoff game is the norm. And I know this is his first playoff game, but really the playoff for us started whenever we played Auburn. It felt like, and we've had so many big games this year and even in the past, big games where everything's on the line. And we've played some very talented teams and talented defenses. But again, the message that Coach Sweeney's really instilled in our guys is it's not about who we play, it's not about where we play, it's not about what time we play, it's about how we play, and it's about us. And all those other factors really should not have any implication on our success. We control our success. That's really the mindset that our guys have. So, we have a lot of confidence in Kelly. We've got other guys, Justin Falcinelli starting center. It's his first time playing in a playoff game, but really that's not been our focus at all. Our focus has really been on ourselves and doing all the things that we can do to get ourselves ready to go. Yeah, I think just speaking from Clemson's side, I do think our stability has been very important for us. There's a comfort level on our headsets in our game planning. I think even for our players, they know what to expect from us. We know what to expect from them. It's been kind of part of our winning formula, I would say. I'd also say, just looking across the field, it's very remarkable the consistency that Alabama's been able to play with, at a very high level and losing multiple coaches. I think that says a lot about Coach Saban and his program. But we're very, very proud of the consistency and stability that we've had at Clemson. I think a large part of that credit goes to Coach Sweeney. And he has an environment, he's built an environment there at Clemson that, coaches don't want to leave. They want to stay and really feel blessed to be there and be a part of that. Yeah, it's definitely a huge challenge for those guys. Every time that I talk to our offensive line, I remind them that they're one of the reasons that we're here. I personally, I coach the wide receivers. We've had a lot of great receivers over the last 8 or 9 years come through Clemson. But I really feel like the change in our program and in our offense the last 3 years, a lot of that credit goes to those guys up front on the offensive line because the skill guys can only take you so far. Even a great quarterback can only take you so far. At some point, you've got to win in the trenches, and I feel like that our guys up front really took a huge step forward about 3 years ago, and I think these guys understand that. They know the importance. It really starts up front for us. We can't do anything running the ball or on the perimeter without those guys. And I think they see that it's definitely a challenge. Alabama has one of the best front sevens that we'll play all year. There's a lot of respect for those guys, and especially, the guys that have played and then even the guys that didn't play the last 2 years. They were on the sidelines and they saw, what type of battle that was against Alabama. And you're not going into the game kind of guessing what it's going to be like. There's an expectation and that what you're going to get from those guys up front. But it's definitely a challenge and one our guys are looking forward to. Yeah, I think, one thing for us, part of our formula is we believe in playing a lot of guys. I think each year leading up to this year, we played about 7 receivers every game. Our 7th guy would get somewhere between 10 and 15 snaps. This year we're playing 9 guys a game. Our 9th guy is getting somewhere around 10 to 15 snaps. And so for us, whenever we do lose key players, like last year losing Mike Williams and Artavis Scott, it wasn't as drastic as a change for us because Deion Kane had played so much, Ray McLeod had played so much over the last 2 years. But I've been proud of the way those guys, it hasn't been easy. Each of those guys have had their moments. of success and maybe some challenging times. But for them, they take a lot of pride in the tradition that we've had at Clemson at the wide receiver position. All the guys that have come before them that are on in the NFL, and they take that on as a big responsibility to carry that on and to continue to improve that. And looking in this matchup, I mean, it's pretty easy to say that Alabama is known for their secondary. I think Coach Saban and their defensive staff do an excellent job. Very well coached, very technically sound, and so it's a big time matchup. And each coach talks about their matchup, but we've got to win that matchup on the perimeter to have a chance to win the game. And last year we made just enough plays to be able to get it done, and this year, we're right back at it, and it'll be a heavyweight match. Okay, I did. I redshirted. His senior year was my redshirt freshman year, so we didn't actually get to play on the field together. But we did have 1 year there, and by that time that I got to Clemson, he was the starting quarterback, one of the captains, leaders, and so I just remember watching him lead our offense, and I also remember him being one of the toughest players. I know he took a lot of shots and hits whenever he was at Clemson, and had a lot of respect for him at that point, and then through the years had kept up with him in his coaching career, and whenever the opportunity came up and Coach Swinney brought him back to Clemson,